Yo, I didn't even realize I was on screen.
Yo, what's up?
Yo,
What's
what
going
up?
on? Dude, thank you so much for joining me for this one. Tonight we're doing an analysis of a couple of films of Wes Anderson, who
Nice.
directed Rushmore, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. That's what we're covering tonight. Row of Tenenbaums. He continues to put out movies like every couple years. And this one is, of course, a sponsored stream. Thank you to John out there very much, who thought that I'd forgotten about him. Of course, I hadn't. And actually, I'd been kind of struggling with this one and how to approach it for a while. So I'm glad to have our expert here, our expert cinema analyzer, Jerry from Exposing Powerful Lies live streams. Thank you so much, homeboy.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me. I was happy to come and do this because I can't think of Wes Anderson without thinking of my high school years and stuff and all the hipster friends and all. Wes Anderson's like the quintessential hipster filmmaker or whatever, and we all loved his movies growing up. So I've seen all his all the earlier films a million times. The newer ones I've seen, but not nearly as much. Definitely seen, Life Aquatic a million times, Rushmore a million times. My favorite Wes Anderson film of all time, just for the record, since we're not talking about it today, is Moonrise Kingdom. I think by far, objectively, best film ever. I'll fight anybody on that. I love that movie so much. That is right up my alley. That sappy bullshit. Like, I love that stuff, man. That's my kryptonite. But no, Life Aquatic's great. Yeah, I love the early films of Wes Anderson for sure. So I was definitely happy to be invited on for this.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting choice, a unique choice, Moonrise Kingdom. And
Everybody likes Life Aquatic. Everybody likes Rushmore. I think Moonrise Kingdom's the best, but that's just like I said. That's just my cup of tea. That like young love, like sappy bullshit. Like that's totally my cup of tea.
right.
That's
Yeah,
the stuff I saw that movie in theaters with my grandma. Me and my grandma went to go see that.
wholesome.
Yeah, wholesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen all of his films in the cinema with my buddy Paul. Shouts out to Paul and Rollin, who helped me cover Apocalypse Now. And I like Bottle Rocket is the one that's often kind of never really talked about it. That's his first film.
His first one, right?
His breakthrough film was, of course, Rushmore. And I think Bill Murray was nominated for an Oscar for that film.
Yeah. Which one?
For Rushmore.
Rushmore. Yeah. So, like, he basically totally reinvigorated Bill Murray's career. Everybody knows that. He basically did a John Travolta, like with Tarantino and John Travolta. He did that with Bill Murray. He gave him his comeback, because by the time he was doing the Wes Anderson films, he was like a washed up actor that most of Hollywood was like, yo, don't work with this guy. He drinks, he drugs,
Yeah,
he's an old bastard.
It's interesting about Bill Murray because he really has had that like resurgence in his career, like you mentioned. And I think looking back, it's kind of funny because that time where his career was, I guess, in the kind of doldrums has sort of been forgotten about. And Rushmore really did totally like you said, totally reinvigorate his career.
It was the perfect character for him, especially at that time.
Yes. And he went on to do Lost in Translation, which is, he did a bunch of like, sort of hipster films and kind of found
Flowers.
Yes. Who did Broken Flowers? Was that Jim Jarmusch?
I think
Who did that one? Yeah. But he sort of found his niche, and then they have all the like, Bill Murray lore.
Right.
Living in Charleston and showing up at weddings or whatever. Yeah. And I think that is weirdly true. I know that he like doesn't have an agent. He's never had like that's, something extraordinary or noble, but I guess it's unusual for Hollywood. And his career choices have been all right. They've been pretty cool.
Yeah.
He did the what was the zombie film that he did? Yes, he did that. And I don't know, overall, like whatever. Of course, we talked about Caddyshack and we talked about him and like, his life and stuff. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, definitely got his career in motion. And Rushmore is an interesting film. It's my favorite of the Wes Anderson films. I
think it's probably the objectively best film he's done. You know what I mean? I'm just like, if you took my bias out of it, I think Rushmore's his best, but my favorite's Moonrise Kingdom for sure.
It's funny how you said that people go to The Life Aquatic because critics who cares what critics think generally,
Oh,
but
it made
critics
no money.
hate
Yeah.
the film. Yeah, they hate the film. A lot of people, like everyone I talk to that's seen it, is like, I don't get it, whatever. And
Yeah,
that's fine.
stuck up, smug, pretentious,
Right.
boring,
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. Which I mean is probably a little bit true, but like at the same time, like I don't know, I think it's endearing. I think it's a cute film.
Right. Well, it's
Um,
also kind of like it's kind of supposed to be that way, right? I
right.
mean, there is this weird like class warfare within the film,
Hmm.
with Jeff. Well, we'll get to that. But the soundtrack alone for that movie is so awesome. Mark Mothersbaugh.
Yeah, Sue
And,
George. That was another thing.
oh
All my
yeah,
hipster friends in high school were always playing that freaking guy because of this movie.
yeah,
Always, my one friend in particular was always playing that guy's music.
yeah. That's cool. And the thing that's happened recently with his, because it's weird because I loved his movies. I
Hmm.
mean, is I loved them. And then around like 2019 or 2020, with all the shit that was happening, and then he released, was it The French Dispatch? And at that point, I remember watching the first few minutes of the movie, and I just completely, I was like, this, enough of this. I got like, I actually got mad at the movie because it's like we're going to overload the movie with every, major star or whatever. Everybody wants to be in it. And the cutesy kind of narrative, I'm like, this doesn't work anymore. Not that art has to, play to what's happening in society, but I just found it so
Are you talking
irrelevant.
about the new Wes Anderson film?
Yeah, was it The French Dispatch, the one with Benicio?
I haven't. So I never saw that one. The last
Right.
one I saw was the hotel, the Grand Budapest Hotel. And
Yeah. So
when I saw that, I was like, nah, whatever. Like I don't know,
right.
like kind of like what you're saying. Like I was a little played out on the whole. Sort of lost its luster for me a little bit. I mean, they're still good
Yeah.
films. Like I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I just was like, whatever. It didn't have that like spark that the old ones had. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. The Grand Budapest Hotel is kind of like, oh, so we filmed it, and it's got this hotel, and it's like, yeah, but his films do that every time.
Hmm.
And now we're just trying to, outdo the set pieces. And it also kind of reminded me of like, have you ever seen Harold and Maude?
Hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like we're gonna take Harold and Maude and we're gonna remake it like 100 times,
Hmm.
like in one movie, and it just becomes, I don't
Yeah.
know. I hate to like, I hate to
It's
cut on it or whatever
it's
because his
totally in
early
that
films,
same.
yeah,
Yeah, it's totally in that same vein of Harold and Maude. I never sort of drew that connection, but yeah, for sure that they're all that like hipstery thing going on there. I don't even know like how you'd break that down more, but I know like Harold and Maude definitely. I haven't seen that in forever, but I remember getting that from the library and being like, "What is this? This freaking
right,
old lady with this dude?" Like, yeah,
yeah, because it's got Ruth Gordon
yeah,
from Rosemary's Baby, and
hmm
there is a connection. The dude, the kid, and Harold and Maude, Harold, I guess,
hmm
is in Zissou. He's in The Life Aquatic. Did you know
really?
that?
No,
Yeah,
I didn't.
he's the tax assessor or whatever.
Okay, okay,
It
that makes
looks
sense.
it looks totally different because he's bald and he's old, and
Right.
and Bill Murray's like cutting on him, and he's like, I'm a human being too. That's him. And it took me a long time to recognize that dude, but I think that the two, there's an obvious like I don't know, pedigree from that type of movie because it's quirky and it's
Quirky.
like
That's the word. Yeah.
yeah, it's like an
Quirky.
unusual love story,
Right.
and it's also kind of preppy. So
Yeah.
that sort of, I guess, should we just dive into Rushmore?
Yeah. Let's do it.
All right, so
Is it possible if you turn your speaker volume down a little bit? I'm getting an echo.
oh, I'm sorry. Let's
Oh, you're
see.
good. You're good.
Usually that doesn't happen. Let me look at the volume, the settings, because I got the echo cancellation. Man, all of my stuff reset for some reason.
Right. Well, plus
Um,
two, you're doing StreamYards, which is different than what you normally do, so I could see that bringing up an issue too. Because I know you usually use OBS, right?
yes, I usually use that, and that totally reset everything. I guess because it did an update, like, and the computer died or some shit.
Yeah.
But
I'm not here. Oh, no, I'm still hearing a little bit, but it's fine. Don't worry too much about it if it's
all right,
if it's
how about
trouble.
this? When you're talking, I'm gonna try to mute as much as I can,
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
that should help. Yeah, sorry, people. Hopefully the volume's all right. Doing the best I can here. At least we got a good video stream because it kept cutting
Mhm.
out yesterday. All right,
Oh,
you want
really?
to? Yeah, oh yeah, it was really bad. It was like in the old days when I was streaming off of a hotspot.
Yeah, you don't wanna do that.
Because I did it during the day, and I guess everybody's on the internet or whatever. I don't know what was going on.
Yeah.
Shouldn't do that. All right, do you want to give a synopsis of
Sure.
Rushmore? All
Yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
cool.
So, obviously,
Neat.
everybody already knows about like the color coding. Like he's specific. Wes Anderson's sort of like a filmmaker's filmmaker. You know what I mean? He uses a lot of these little things. You know about that, right? How he like color coded each segment of Rushmore, like different colors for different chapters and stuff. And like in the beginning, it's blue because he's alone and sad and blah 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 blah. So, anyways, let's get through the synopsis. So, Rushmore came out in 1998. American comedy film directed by Wes Anderson about an eccentric teenager named Max Fisher, played by Jason Schwartzman in his film debut. His friendship with the rich industrialist Herman Bloom, Bill Murray, and their shared affection for an elementary school teacher, Rosemary Cross, Olivia Williams. The film was co-written by Anderson and Owen Wilson. The soundtrack features several songs by bands associated with the British invasion of the 1960s. Filming began in November of 1997 around Houston, Texas, and lasted 50 days until late January 1998. While the box office results were modest, the film had a positive reception among the critics. The film helped launch the careers of Wes Anderson and Jason Schwartzman, while establishing a second career for Bill Murray as a respected actor in independent cinema. The 1999 Independent Spirit Awards, Anderson won the Best Director Award and Murray won Best Supporting Male Award. That's a weird award name, Best Supporting Male. Never heard that before. Murray also earned a nomination for the Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actor. Starting from Rushmore, Murray became one of Anderson's most frequent collaborators, appearing in his 8 subsequent films. 2016, the film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. Eccentric 15-year-old scholarship student Max Fisher participates extensively in extracurricular activities at the prestigious Rushmore Academy in Houston, but he struggles academically. Max's middle-class background, which contradicts the wealthy and privileged lives of most Rushmore students, feeds his determination to make his name known. Headmaster Nelson Guggenheim places him on sudden death academic probation, warning him that if he fails one more class, he will be expelled. At a school assembly, Max meets Herman Bloom, a disillusioned parent and local industrialist who despises his twin sons, Ronnie and Donnie, both students at Rushmore. Herman befriends Max and takes him under his wing. Upon reading an intriguing message left in a book he read in the library, Max tracks down the book's previous borrower, Rosemary Cross, a widowed first grade teacher at Rushmore, and soon becomes obsessed with her. Attempting to woo her, he successfully petitions to have the Latin curriculum kept at Rushmore and later confesses his love for her. She rejects his affection due to their age difference. Rosemary and others, including Max's younger friend Dirk Calloway, are impressed by Max's tenacity, while other students, including the brash and aggressive Magnus Buchan, resent Max's ability to manipulate authority, seemingly on a whim, to the point where the entire school body is affected. Max then attempts to court Rosemary by building an aquarium on the school's baseball field, noting her interest in marine life due to the fish tanks in her classroom and the library book by Jacques Cousteau that they had both read, but is stopped by Guggenheim at the groundbreaking ceremony and subsequently expelled from Rushmore for having never sought the school's approval for the project. Afterward, Max enrolls at Grover Cleveland High School, a local public school. Classmate Margaret Yang shows interest in him, but he ignores her. Eventually, Max begins to settle in and participate in extracurricular activities again, with Rosemary and Bloom supporting him. Bloom encourages him to give up pursuing Rosemary, but eventually becomes attracted to her himself, and they begin to see each other behind Max's back. Eventually, Dirk discovers the relationship between Rosemary and Bloom and informs him as a payback for a rumor Max started about his mother. Max confronts Bloom, declaring their friendship over, and they soon begin scrapping. Max informs Bloom's wife of her husband's affair, forcing him to move into a hotel. Then he puts bees in Bloom's room, leading to his running over Max's bicycle with his car. Max is eventually arrested for cutting the brake lines on Bloom's car. He later attempts to get revenge on Rosemary by taking damaging photos of her and Bloom together, but learns that from Guggenheim that she had already resigned. Max eventually gives up, meeting Bloom at the grave of his mother, Eloise, who died of cancer when Max was 7 years old. He explains that revenge no longer matters because even if he wins, Rosemary would still love Bloom. Max becomes reclusive and begins to skip school to work at his father, Bert's barbershop. One day, Dirk stops by the shop to apologize, bringing him a Christmas present. He then reveals to Max that Guggenheim suffered a stroke and suggests he visit him at the hospital, knowing Bloom will also be there. Max and a washed up Bloom meet and are courteous. Bloom tells him that Rosemary broke up with him because she's still in love with her dead husband, Edward Appleby, a former Rushmore student, whose death the previous year directly influenced her decision to teach there. Max eventually returns to school and begins to improve his grades. Taking his final shot at Rosemary, Max pretends to be injured in a car accident, but she sees through his ruse and rebuffs him again. He then decides to help Bloom and Rosemary reconcile, first by inviting her to another aquarium groundbreaking ceremony, but she does not show up. Max then invites both of them to attend his Vietnam War themed play at Grover Cleveland. The performance touches Bloom, himself a Vietnam veteran, and he and Rosemary later appear to reconcile. At the after party, Max reveals to Bloom and Rosemary that he and Margaret are dating. Max and Rosemary then share a dance together, and that is how the film ends. Where did our homie go?
Boomerang. There we go.
Hey, okay. What's up?
Yeah, I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
You're good.
There we go. Awesome,
nice.
man.
Yeah, you always make me jealous of your glasses, dude.
I had a couple pictures loaded there for us too. How about that?
Nice.
It only took me like an hour and a half to put those on StreamYard. So anyway, yeah, good synopsis. And so I think that something that informs Wes Anderson movies, all of them, is the fact that they're obviously like overtly, they're, I don't know how else to describe it, but they're preppy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's always like a dichotomy between or amongst classes in his movies,
right?
But they're stylized in this way that, you know, when I first saw Rushmore, especially, I think I was in like 11th or 12th grade, and it's like, you know, he starts off and he's at Rushmore Academy, and then he ends up in the public school. And it's funny because when he goes in, you know, he introduces himself in the classroom and the bell rings. Nobody cares at all. But all of his like his extracurricular clubs, his activities, for me were pretty relatable because like those things like that are real, right? And you know, he fights for the Latin club and all this stuff. And the weird thing is his relationship like with the teacher. That's you know,
it's totally weird. It's totally weird, but it's also like played for that. It's supposed to be weird. It's supposed to be funny. It's, you know what I mean? But yeah, it's definitely weird as fuck. Like,
right. It's cool that Bill Murray is this industrialist, you know, and he gives this speech in chapel, right? What does he say? He's like, take aim at the good ones, right? Take them down. And it's like the greatest speech he's ever heard. And Mr. Guggenheim, the headmaster, is so that like I can't emphasize how true that dude is, Brian Cox, in that role. It's so true. He's got the sweater on, the glasses, you know, he's sitting there like with his blanket. And his relationship with Max, he gives him a scholarship to the school for writing a play. You know, he's creative, but he doesn't follow the rules. And it's weird because an academy like that sort of exists to teach the boys to not always follow the rules. Like sometimes it's important not to, but the way that he breaks the rules is like, you know, it's unacceptable. But he makes good, right? And I think some of the best parts of the movie are like how he says that his dad is a brain surgeon, but he's a barber.
Right.
So yeah, I guess technically, you know, he is working on the head. But the relationship with Olivia Williams is when you see it when you're a teenager, you're like, oh, this is whatever. And then when you get older, you're like, oh, dude, this is wild. And she went to, this is totally irrelevant, but she went to my drama school. And I didn't know her because she's older than I am. But I think that's the only role that I've seen her in, or one of them. I don't remember seeing her in anything else.
Yeah, I don't either.
It's like it's a bizarre role how she would get that role, because she's English, like she has her natural accent in the film, Um, and I love the movie except for the parts that are harsh, like where he's talking about her dead husband,
Mhm.
and it's like, okay, this was charming, but now it's like it's obsessive,
Right. Yeah.
climbing into the bedroom and all that stuff. Like that's it's too much.
Weird, yeah. It gets
Yeah,
weird.
I mean, what do you think about that? Why does he do that in the movie? Why does he
'Cause
push
he's
it?
young. Because he's young, I think, because he's just like it's like the first time he's experiencing those emotions, you know what I mean? And he's just socially kind of inept, but he's like that perfect like character of somebody that's like really smart, really like not maybe not smart, but just like well, entrepreneurial or whatever. He's a go getter, he's doing stuff, and but he's just sort of like socially like I don't know, but he is also very socially. He's not really socially inept because he is good at manipulating people. So I
Yes.
don't I don't know. Too also, I do have to admit I haven't seen this film in like 2 years, so I'm going off of memory. I've seen it a million times, but not recently. So I'm trying to So if I misspeak, please forgive me.
Well, I
Um
mean, it's one of those movies though that like you see, if you like the movie, you see it so many times and it kind of
yeah.
lives in your consciousness and it's so quotable,
Oh yeah.
right? Um it's funny how yes, he seems like he would be socially inept, like he's almost, a spurg almost, right?
Right. That's
But
that's
he's
kind of what
got
I'm getting at.
this
Spurg. Yeah.
yeah, but he's got this charm and this
Yeah.
charisma where he can just get people like when he goes into Bill Murray's office and he's like, I need a check for what is it? He's like, I need $250,000,
Mhm.
right? And he's like, here's a check for 2,500. But he gets the check,
Yeah. Yeah.
because he knows that Bill Murray is in a way like this older version of him.
Mm.
And also the way that all of his friends are like way younger, right? Dirk, who was Dennis the Menace,
Mhm. Mhm.
the blonde kid. He manipulates his mother, Margaret. Is it Margaret Yang? The girl, the Asian girl, Margaret Yang, I think, who was also in the movie Old School. Remember, she's the girl that the dean tries to manipulate in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's been in 2 movies, and some of the only people that he can't manipulate are Magnus, right? Magnus Buchan, this Scottish kid at school who is like probably the coolest character in the movie,
Mhm.
who like throws the knife down. Um, but anyway, I don't know why Wes Anderson pushes things in his movies like that. It seems it kind of bothers me really
Right.
because it's like how in Royal Tenenbaums, which we're not covering, it's kind of too much, but Royal Tenenbaums, which a lot of people like think is his greatest movie,
Yeah.
was also Oscar nominated and all this
Dude,
stuff.
that was the first one I saw, and I saw it when I was like 12, and I just did not get it the first time. I'm like, what is like? I just wasn't expecting it. So as a
Right.
kid, I'm like, man, this is just like boring, so weird. But no, I do appreciate it. It's a good film for sure. But as a kid, I just did not understand what the hell I was watching.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could
It's so
see that.
depressing, dude.
It,
It's
it
like,
really is.
yeah,
Yes. And people I think in general, like with his movies, they either like really like his movies or they're like, what is this? Like this is
yeah. It's
this
like the quirky,
unrelatable.
yeah.
Yeah, the quirkiness is a whole thing in itself, which is
Mhm.
like it can be charming, but then it can also be like, okay, I get it. The quirkiness, how much quirkiness can there be in a movie? Right.
Right.
I think with Tenenbaums, like seeing that would bother me was obviously the part with Luke Wilson where he's in the bathroom and they're playing
Mhm.
Elliott Smith. And it's like, is this really necessary? Like, you know, like they go so far in the
Mhm.
movie and it's weird because the rest of the movie is so great. Like it's a great movie. And Gene Hackman is like awesome in the movie and all the characters are great.
Yeah.
Um, Owen Wilson is fantastic, right? He's like Wildcat.
Yeah, that's Wes Anderson's strength is the characters for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The in that movie, the relationship, like the Ben Stiller relationship with Uzi and Ari, is bizarre. And the part that I hate in that movie, okay, I'm just gonna say, is the end of the movie where Owen Wilson's like driving the car down the street and he runs over the dog. I'm like, what? Like it's I feel manipulated when I'm watching it, like as an audience member,
Right.
right? And I read something that he said one time about how he does that in his movies, And I think he just said basically like the emotional impact of that in the movie kind of overwhelms the audience and is supposed to kind of make up for the rest of the movie being a set piece. So it's like you remember that you're in something and you're viewing people that are supposed to be human and that they go through a range of emotions. But I'm like, okay, well, what a weird way to do it, right?
Yeah.
Rushmore doesn't really have that, which is good, but it's okay. So I mean, what else can we say about this? Like,
It's like a coming of age movie, kind of. It's like a kid sort of. It's almost seems like a kid coming to grips with who he is in the big world, and he tries to go for the girl who's totally not right for him and fails, and then eventually reconciles with who he actually is, and then dates the girl his own age and figures it out, and is okay with being in the poor people's school,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think some other relatable things in this are that, when he's a teenager, he is so used to being able to manipulate his way into getting what he wants, but what he wants is so beyond his peers, right?
Right.
And it's like, okay, so he wants the Latin club so he wants to get rid of the Latin club. So, and it's not really for like popularity. It's to get into the good graces of one person at a time.
Right.
Mr. Guggenheim in that one scene is like, no, we're not going to take it. And he's like, okay, but can I appeal this decision? And he's like, there's no appealing.
Yeah.
You got into the school on a scholarship because you wrote a play, which is like, that's unusual. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you see his plays,
they're like, so ridiculous, dude.
Yeah,
it's like he's going so hard. He goes so hard, dude. Like the Vietnam War one, it's like you're like, come on, dude.
So awesome. You're like, okay, now I get it why I got the scholarship. Like this is so unbelievable. So he does. What are his plays? He does Serpico.
Yeah.
Right, because Dirk is like in the nun's outfit, and he like on the listening device, and they're like he's outside. Did he take the pie? And then they shoot him out the window.
Right, which is kind of like what I was going for as a kid too, in certain ways. Like, I remember being in like 5th grade, and teacher's like, "Okay, guys, you got to pick a book and do like a book report on it." And I did like Silence of the Lambs. I was always trying 1984. I was trying to do like the big boy stuff, trying to impress the teacher, shit like that. Yeah.
Right. His plays. The first play I was in middle school reminds me. It was called Life on the Bowery, and I was like this dude Steve Brody who jumped off the Brooklyn Bridge, and like it was cool because I jumped off this bridge on stage, and like they had this like tank of water on the other side, so I like jumped into a tank of water, and It was cool because it was like I don't know really what was cool about it, but it was cool at the time. Because we were in middle school and stuff, and it's like we're just doing pranks and adventures or whatever. And his plays are like what theater like should be in
like
a way.
Real theater, yeah.
Yes, and
attempting to be, yeah.
Right, and at the same time, it's like no, we're just going to do movies and make them into plays. But that's all right. I mean, who cares? Like there's a play version of Point Break in LA that I wish I could see. Okay, it's probably seen it. And it's been running for a while. And it's like, it's cool from what I've heard because like it's just the movie, but on stage. So all of the like wild parts of Point Break are like just purposefully, they are aware that they're on a stage, but they don't they don't care. So it's like, if you want the ultimate ride, and he's like, they're skydiving and it's obviously fake, but it's fun.
Yeah.
And what's his other movie? He does Serpico, he does the Vietnam play, and he does what's the other one that he does? I don't remember, but he gets punched in the face by his director.
Yeah.
Right? Back off. Read the lines that I wrote. When he does the Vietnam play, that is cool because he involves Buchan, right? Who's like perfect for the role because he's the bully. And that kid should have been in, like, you see that kid and you're like, this kid was definitely in Trainspotting. He had to have been in Trainspotting, right? Giving your mama a wank. What does he say? And he's got the knife in his hand, and he's got a cast on.
Yeah.
Um, and but other than that, like, what else can we say? The soundtrack is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's got
Yeah. He's always
Cat
got good
Stevens,
music direction.
right? It's got Cat Stevens.
Mm-hmm.
Throwback music, I suppose.
Yeah.
So that one's great. I mean, Rushmore really is a great movie, and Bill Murray's great because we see his disillusionment with his family who hates him.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he's got these twins who just abuse him basically,
Yeah.
and he sits by the pool and throws golf balls in the pool. Um, his family portrait is so like the artwork in Wes Anderson movies is good because
Oh yeah.
I don't know, it's just funny. And he has this war, right, with this kid, which is wild because he's a grown man. But he's obviously been hurt by love or whatever. And it's a good movie because he gets the girl. The kid grows up. They have that dinner where Luke Wilson is there, and
Yeah.
you wore your scrubs.
I saw somebody made a comment about that. I like your nurse's uniform.
Yeah, like your nurse's uniform guy. Um,
Yeah.
He's sitting there drinking. Of course, Bill
Mhm.
Murray buying him drinks.
Yeah. Yeah. Bill Murray plays like the perfect, just like miserable, bitter old guy. Yeah. I hate
Right.
these kids. Yeah.
Lives at the hotel, which is a theme in a lot of his movies, living at the hotel.
Yeah.
And then finds redemption, and that's it, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a great movie. Definitely recommend it. It's quirky, it's funny, and I mean, if you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. Wes Anderson's become so popular now. I feel like everybody's seen it, but for those of you who haven't, definitely check it out. It's definitely one of his better films for sure, and a lot of people think it's his best. I think it's a better first one to watch than Bottle Rocket, his actual first film. I definitely think some of the later ones are better to check out first, and then you can kind of go back and watch Bottle Rocket and appreciate it a little bit more once you sort of get, because his style's been more, I think, fully formed, by the time we get to like Life Aquatic and stuff. But yeah, no, definitely good stuff, and he reuses the same cast a lot, and it's one of those directors where he's got the people he really likes to work with, and yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think Owen Wilson wrote this one, but he wrote. He's a co-writer with Wes Anderson, a bunch of his other films. And
no, he did. He co-wrote it. He co-wrote
he did?
Rushmore. Yeah.
Oh, okay, and all the Wilson brothers are in the film.
Yeah.
Like you said, he reuses the cast.
I
like
recently learned that Rainn Wilson was a Wilson brother, and I'm like, man, I never like realized like Rainn Wilson I was a Wilson. Like I just never.
from The Office.
Yeah.
White?
Yeah.
No, he's
Yes.
not their brother.
Yes,
No
he
way.
is. Yes, he is. I recently learned that. And I'm like, what? He looks nothing like them. Luke and Owen, they're like they're brothers. Like, of course they are. And
Right.
yeah, Rainn Wilson is the third brother. I was like, get out of here, dude.
Well, the third brother that I know is the one who's like he's the gym coach.
I don't know how many fucking
more.
Wilsons there are. I just mean he's the third. He's another one.
Yeah. So there's definitely a third brother who's exactly like them.
Oh, really?
Like he runs up and he's like, "You're ruining my baseball field," and he's trying to build the aquarium. There's no way. There's no way that.
I'm looking it up now just to make sure, but I found that out recently, and I was like, "What? Are you serious?" And then, so I mean, I could be wrong. Let me just double check, but I'm pretty certain he is. Let me check here.
All right, Rainn Wilson. Let's see, is from hold on, University of Washington and New York University, and the other Wilsons are from Texas.
Really? Are they not related? Okay,
I don't think
that
they're
would
related.
that would make sense because when I first heard that, I was like, "Get the frick out of here!" I never knew that. And then let me see.
Let's see.
And see, now I gotta figure this out because I thought I definitely thought I learned that recently. I heard it and I was like, that makes sense because they're all Wilsons. But then I could see that not being
the other one is Andrew Wilson. That's the oldest one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're not brothers. They're not brothers. Okay, my bad.
So that's
when I heard that, I was really surprised. I was like, I would have never thought that. So I was wrong. My bad, y'all.
No, that's like in Family Guy when he's like, "Did you know that Patrick Stewart and Brad Pitt are first cousins?" And he's like, "Really?" And he's like, "No, but doesn't that seem like something that would be true?"
Yeah, no, I straight up heard that like a couple months ago, and I was like, wow, I never knew that. Turns out it's not true. That's funny.
It's funny you bring up
We boomed.
Rainn Wilson's like I saw something about him the other day. He's like he wrote a book recently, and he's I don't know if he's based or something, but he's got
No, he's nice there. I saw a thing on Raven Wilson recently where he was like, he came out and he said something about, oh, they always make the Christians the bad guys, and then
uh,
he totally backpedaled it and was like, oh, but the LGBT blah, 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 Black Lives Matter, some shit like that, you know?
of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Slow Boy
so,
says Jerry trusted the interwebs. I know, man. They got me. They got you, boy. Anyways,
all right. So should we move on to what's the other one we're doing? Life Aquatic
Life
with
Aquatic.
Zissou.
Yep.
Okay, so we should have done. Should we talk about Royal Tenenbaums? I mean, just from memory.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, why not? So, Royal Tenenbaums was, I mean, they'd already kind of broken out with Rushmore, but then Royal Tenenbaums like opened them up to a wider audience. And I think it's because I don't know why, but their cast for one like expanded. So Alec Baldwin narrates the movie. Gene Hackman is in it. And one thing was that Gene Hackman, I think by this point had like sort of semi-retired and he came back for this film. He's awesome in it. He's really good. Yeah. And I know that like he did not get along with the rest of the cast. And it seems we read about Bill Murray doing this a lot. Like he did this in Caddyshack. Gene Hackman was picking on somebody in the film, and Bill Murray like threw a punch or something like that. So they say.
Well, he's like really well known for being like pretty heavy drinker, and he had like a big cocaine problem for a long time as well. So he actually got a reputation in Hollywood for being like not good to work with, which is
Bill Murray or Gene Hackman.
Yeah, Bill Murray,
or both.
I mean, I don't know about Gene Hackman. I could see that too, but I do know for a fact that Bill Murray got a bad reputation for a while,
right?
For being a drinker. Like, there's even behind the scenes footage where you can see Bill Murray working on Life Aquatic, and he's sitting there like pouring drinks out, and the lady's like, don't you have another scene to shoot tonight? He's like, yeah, but don't worry, I'll be drunk for it.
Yeah. Well, I think Gene Hackman, first of all, whenever I see Gene Hackman, one of my friends' dad is named Gene and looks exactly like Gene Hackman. We always called him Gene Hackman. Yeah. Shout out to Gene Hackman.
I always think of Bob Hoskins when I hear the name Gene Hackman. I don't know why. It's some weird like mental connection where I think of Bob Hoskins every time. I mean, they do kind of have like the fat, stocky old man look to them both, but like,
yeah. Yes, they're very 70s cinema handsome. Meaning like they're very, they're gritty and they come from the streets or whatever. Yeah. And Gene Hackman's great, dude. He's awesome. Yeah. Popeye Doyle, right? The French Connection. He's great in Crimson Tide. We talked about him in the Don Simpson stream. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So he like came back and he sort of retired. I think he's still alive. It's like 96 or something.
Gene Hackman.
Yeah, and he's like, he's a real, gruff dude. He's so funny in the movie, though.
Right.
And he's just he's a raconteur, right? He's married to this wealthy woman. He got these kids. I think what would explain him best is like when he watches Margot's play and they're talking about it afterwards, and he's like, I just didn't believe that it was real. I could tell I was watching a play. And then they're like, happy birthday, Margot. Says it on her birthday. Yeah. And then he gets kicked out of the house or whatever, gets a divorce, gets disbarred. He's a lawyer and lives in the YMCA or whatever for 20 years.
Right.
And then fakes a disease so that he can reconnect with his family, and does reconnect with them. Then they're like, whatever the disease. And then he really dies.
Right.
So it's a sort of redemptive arc, but through a raconteur, a rake.
Yeah, it's like a big dysfunctional family, three like exceptionally gifted, siblings, basically, achieve a bunch of success and then lose the success,
Right.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, and the mother is what's her name? Angelica Houston. I never really got the deal with Angelica Houston. What's the deal with her? Like, she's John Huston's daughter.
Yep.
And
I love John Huston, but Angelica Houston, I really don't give a crap about. She's just Hollywood royalty, because John Huston
yeah,
was such a big deal.
but it's like, oh, this, unusually beautiful woman. And I'm like, I'd probably call her a handsome woman. I don't know about like I mean, I guess, I don't know. Like, she was good in the Addams Family movie, but
Yeah.
like, so what, right?
Right.
And who else is in it? Ben Stiller's in it. Luke Wilson. What's her face? The blonde woman. What's the blonde girl's name? Gwyneth Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah.
Yeah, she's the depressive playwright.
Yeah.
And who gets her finger cut off. But like, her sequence is really good though, because it shows when she runs away from home. She, Reeve Gauche, she's on the Seine in Paris, exploring her sensibilities. And then she's like on a bus, a crosstown bus, like making out with a dude in a mohawk. And she's just depressive. She's supposed to be in love with Bill Murray, who's like what is he? He's like a weird child psychologist who's studying that kid with the glasses.
Yeah, tweed suit type,
Yeah. Fascinating. Utterly fascinating. The kid's like drawing pictures.
Right.
And Danny Glover comes onto the scene. Danny Glover's great in this.
Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
I've never liked Danny Glover, but he's really good in this. And there's a scene where Gene Hackman like confronts him with some I liked him.
I like Danny Glover in what's that one movie with Jack Black and Mos Def? Wasn't Danny Glover in that? What was that called? Oh man, this is going way back. Be Kind, Rewind. Was that it? Be Kind, Rewind. I forgot.
Yeah, that's what it's called. Yeah, that's what.
I liked him in that. Yeah, I like that movie. That's kind of the same sort of like early 2000s quirky films.
I think Danny Glover is always too much. He's too derivative. He's like a Walmart Sidney Poitier.
Yeah. That's a great.
Like, it is true though. I mean,
that is a great description of him. Yeah. Oh my God.
And he also does the infomercials. He's like, what does he say in the infomercial? All I know is I saw him in that movie Grand Canyon on a VHS at my friend's like grandparents' house. It was the only movie they had. It's terrible, dude.
Really?
Yeah, it's like Danny Glover and Steve Martin, and there's families, and they're broken up, and I think Danny Glover gets shot, and I'm like, this is weird. Oh, he was in that movie Shoot to Kill with Tom Berenger. Probably nobody has seen that movie. I don't know why I've seen it. But anyway, so Danny Glover is like an architect or something. He's got a suit and a bow tie, and he starts courting Angelica Houston. And Gene Hackman don't like this, and he confronts him. He calls him Coltrane. Very, very that's a backhanded racist comment.
Yeah, that's not progressive.
Yes, but Danny Glover handles it like a gentleman. And then they confront Gene Hackman, and they're like, these aren't pills for your heart. These are Tic Tacs. What is all this machinery in here? Like, where did this come from? And he like stole all the machinery from some dude who worked at the hospital. It's all fake. He confronts Angelica Houston and tells her that he's dying. She's like very upset about it. How long do you have? I have 8 weeks. Then he says, I'm not really dying. And then she slaps him, and then he says, okay, I am dying, but not like right now.
Right.
But he's very likable, and he wants to reconnect with his grandkids for one. And he teaches them how to bend the rules. You got to shake it up a little, right?
Right.
Run through traffic.
Yeah. Throw a little chaos into the mix.
Right.
Yep.
And that part's cool. That part's fun. Owen Wilson is great. He plays a writer who Eli Cash, who writes like short stories about the Old West, and has a cool wardrobe and sits at home like doing peyote. Sorry, it's the peyote.
Yeah.
And Luke Wilson is a Bjorn Borg-esque ex-tennis star who like took off one shoe and a sock or something on the court, lost his mind, lives on a ship, which is where Steve Zissou comes into play.
Yep.
They're always doing dictation in the movies, right? Dictated but not read. they have like the old time dictaphones and the old timey devices, and that's cool.
Yes.
That's cool for
Yeah.
their movie. They have the hawk named Mordecai. What else?
Man, I mean, I like I said, I haven't seen these movies so long. I'm trying to go off of what you're saying to
Yeah,
refresh my memory, but like I'm having a hard time pulling stuff out. I do have the plot in front of me, but like, yeah,
yeah,
I'm this especially this one in particular, Tenenbaums is man, I haven't seen that in so long. I
right.
remember like everything you're saying, I remember in it, but
Well, suffice it to say, it has a good soundtrack. It's got the
yeah.
Ramones on it. And that's about it. That's all we can say.
Yeah, let's move
Yeah,
on to
I mean,
Zissou for sure. That's the main one. Anytime somebody mentions Wes Anderson, that's what I think of as Steve Zissou for sure.
really? Okay, that's cool. All right,
Yeah.
so let's do it. Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou. You want to take it
Oh yeah.
away?
So, released in 2004, adventure comedy drama film, written by Wes Anderson and Noah Baumbach. Um, it is Anderson's fourth film and was released in December 25th, 2004 in the United States. The film stars Bill Murray as Steve Zissou, an eccentric oceanographer who sets out to exact revenge on the jaguar shark that ate his partner and mentor, Esteban. Zissou is both a parody and an homage to French diving pioneer Jacques Cousteau, to whom the film is dedicated, which is like, so obvious. The film also features Owen Wilson, Kate Blanchett, Willem Dafoe, Michael Gambon, Jeff Goldblum, Angelica Houston, and Bud Cort. Sue George has a minor part in it, but contributes heavily to the film's soundtrack. It was filmed in around Naples, Ponza, and the Italian Riviera. The film was released to mixed reviews and was a box office flop. In the decades following its release, it has garnered a cult following and is now viewed more positively by both critics and fans. It was also since remastered and re-released by the Criterion Collection in 2014. While oceanographer Steve Zissou is working on his latest documentary at sea, his best friend and chief diver Esteban Duplantier is devoured by a 10-meter long, luminescently spotted creature Zissou describes as a jaguar shark. For his next project, Zissou is determined to document the shark's destruction. The crew aboard Zissou's aging research vessel, the Bellefonte, includes his estranged wife Eleanor, chief strategist and financial backer. Pele dos Santos, a safety expert and Brazilian guitarist who sings David Bowie songs in Portuguese, and Klaus Daimler, the German first mate who views Zissou and Esteban as father figures. Minor crew members include Vikram Ray, cameraman, Bobby Ogata, frogman, Vladimir Woldarski, physicist and soundtrack composer, Renzo Pietro, soundman, and Anne Marie Sakowitz, a script girl who is often seen topless. Also included is a recent group of unpaid interns from the University of North Alaska. However, the Team Zissou venture has hit a decline. They have not released a successful documentary in 9 years. Ned Plimpton is a longtime Zissou fan whose mother has recently died, who believes that Zissou is his father. After they meet at Zissou's latest premiere, Ned takes annual leave from his job as an airplane pilot in Kentucky to join his crew. As Osiri Draculius, Zissou's producer, cannot find a financier for their latest documentary, Ned offers his inheritance. Eleanor feels that her husband is exploiting Ned and leaves. A pregnant reporter, Jane Winslet Richardson, comes to chronicle the voyage. Both Ned and Zissou are attracted to Jane, and a competition develops between them. Klaus becomes jealous of the attention Zissou pays to Ned. On their mission to find the jaguar shark, the Bellefonte steals tracking equipment from a remote station owned by a currently more successful oceanographer and Zissou's nemesis and rival, Alistair Hennessy. They then sail into unprotected waters and are attacked by Filipino pirates who steal Ned's money and kidnap Belle Ubel, a Bond company stooge assigned to the project. They are then rescued by Hennessy and towed to Patoy. I'm sorry, I'm bad with pronunciation. Sakowitz, along with all but one of the interns, jumps ship once they reach port. Zissou persuades Eleanor to rejoin the Bellefonte and then leads the crew on a rescue mission. They track Bill to an abandoned hotel on a remote island, saving him along with Hennessy, whom the pirates have also kidnapped. Ned and Zissou then make one last search for the shark in the ship's helicopter, but the aircraft malfunctions and they crash. Ned dies from his injuries and is buried at sea. Prior to Ned's death, Eleanor revealed to Jane that Zissou is sterile and therefore Ned could not have been his son. Zissou finally tracks down the shark in a submersible but decides not to kill it, both because of its beauty and not having any more dynamite. At the premiere of the finished documentary, which is dedicated to Ned, who is acknowledged as Zissou's son, Zissou receives a standing ovation while waiting outside the theater for the premiere to finish. The crew returns triumphantly to the ship the next day. So that's the story. And so, yeah, basically, you've got this, famous, popular guy who, again, achieves great success and then loses it, and it's washed up, and everybody's basically, he's like a joke at this point. They haven't released a film in 9 years, and it's another, I think it perfectly sort of sums up Wes Anderson's style, of filmmaking. It's got that his sort of his comedy is front and center in this one for sure. It's got that sort of endearing, personable quality to it. Of like I said, like with the characters and stuff, and yeah, I think it's a really great film. And then there's also the sort of, I don't know, almost like cliche metaphor aspect of it as well. Like, oh, he's facing his demons. The shark is his, it's his. He's got to do the shadow work, bro. He's got to accept his negative side or whatever, and blah 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 blah. Which you can find a million breakdowns of this film like that, going into all the symbolism of the ocean is the subconscious and the shark is his, whatever.
Yeah,
It's good. It's pretentious. It's good though.
It's a beautiful movie. For me at least, it's more moving than the other films because, like what you were saying, I mean, it's the hero's journey, and it's different from the others also because
it's definitely the hero's journey for sure.
He's got this whole crew that supports him, but they kind of represent different aspects of himself, and yet they're also part of this, the ship.
Yep.
And it's like endearing and funny in a way that it's less quirky than the other movies and more sort of.
It's less quirky, but it's so freaking quirky with all the little hats and their magic suits, and the shark is so cartoonish and ridiculous, and the submarine itself is ridiculous, like,
Yeah, and there's like a film editing room, there's a jacuzzi room, there's the interns, there's the side adventure, the excursion, and all that.
Yeah, when they steal the other guy's equipment and stuff, it's really funny. It's like this. What would you even call that? It's like not a caper, but like it's sort of like a mock on the whole caper. They're like, gonna go steal the guy, do the secret mission. Or whatever.
They go on these missions because they're armed, and they go on this mission. They go to his ship, and it's like the most up to date, futuristic, clean. They've got the coffee machine, the espresso machine. They show Jeff Goldblum, and he's totally. They even make a comment on it in the film.
He's an asshole in that. He's like such a pretentious prick,
Yes, and he's got his robe on, and he's got these binoculars or whatever. But I think maybe for me it seems less quirky because their uniforms, for one, are just based on Cousteau. It's Jacques Cousteau.
Right.
And so, we weren't alive when they had like the Cousteau television series or whatever, but I am aware of it enough to know that it tries to take the spirit of that and like what they're doing when they're not on camera.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool.
Yeah, the Cousteau element is definitely super obvious, especially since it was dedicated to him. But then also the main obvious connection there is Moby Dick. Obviously, you've done a breakdown of that, right? Moby Dick.
Yeah.
Have you covered it? Yeah, you did.
Yeah, covered Moby Dick. And so at times it's interesting because he tries to be a sort of Ahab character, but he's too. What is it? I don't know, sensitive. He has too many feelings that where he exposes his inner core to various people in the ship, his ex-wife or whatever, even Draculius, and he does things that are sort of an anti Moby Dick, but when he comes across the beast,
correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end of Moby Dick, doesn't he go down with the shark, right? He goes down with the whale. I mean, he goes and he dies trying to kill it. And in this, it's the opposite, right?
Right, exactly.
It's the shark that sort of brings him back to life in a sense.
Yes, and Moby Dick, they're hunting the whale the entire time. That's the mission, right? They're after the Leviathan, the white whale, the beast. It's in like every sentence of the book. And in this, we don't even like really care or find out about this beast. I mean, we hear about it early in the film, but then we kind of, it killed his first mate or whatever.
Right.
We kind of forget about that with all the other stuff going on. It becomes much more about him. Whereas in Moby Dick, Ahab is absent for most of the book. Right? We don't even see him. He's a presence there, and he's always there, but we don't see him. Mm-hmm. And when we do see him, he's like lingering in the bowels of the ship. He's making his barb, right? His like Luciferian barb that he's going to use to kill this beast. Mm-hmm. But Bill Murray doesn't really, he doesn't really do that. He's in love with Cubby, right? He's got this son who, by the way, that whole thing is a red herring, isn't it?
Which thing? The son?
Well,
yeah. The fact that, it is for sure.
Yeah. So in other words, this random guy kind of ingratiates himself into the crew, says that he's the son. It turns out he's not at all.
Mm-hmm. But he kind of becomes like a son, though.
Yeah, he does. And his death actually is it's awful. It's really awful. But it's awful in a different way than the deaths in the other films. Mm-hmm. And so, so that's what I mean. Like, when you think of Wes Anderson movies, you don't think of people dying.
Right.
At least I don't think people do. But they do. Mm-hmm. Often, and oftentimes the plot is driven by some sort of like, family trauma, like the dad is absent or he's died. Like in what's the movie?
There's always a competition over a girl and stuff like that.
Yes,
that appears a lot.
Yes, that's true. However, the movies also aren't like, you don't think of them as love stories,
right?
They're kind of protagonist, character driven. We're going to follow this person on their weird arc. Which is actually pretty true to life in a number of ways. I mean, because when you're living life, it's like if it's your own movie, not much happens day to day, right?
Right.
But you come across events and, you kind of go up and down. And a lot of the things that they come across, the impediments are they're created by the character himself. Mm-hmm. Right. So Bill Murray, like most of his problems are of his own making. He makes the money, then he loses the money, right? Yeah. The people get kidnapped. He goes and saves them. He's got the son who's not his son, but he did have the relationship with his mother. He gets punched in the face, but he punched the other dude in the face.
Right.
Right. It's like everything is of his own making. But he does constantly redeem himself. Like when they lead the mission, right? The rescue mission on the island. That's such a good sequence. I mean, the music for one is Mark Mothersbaugh, and it's like "Return to Ping Island" is what the song is called. It's like the weird Devo synth.
The guy from Devo worked on the film's soundtrack. Yeah, which Devo's awesome, dude. I loved it. I don't know if anybody else likes Devo, but I love that band
for sure. Dude.
Rock, dude.
The first time I ever saw them was on Beavis and Butthead when I was like 11.
Oh, no. What the music video, Beavis and Butthead?
Yeah, Whip It.
Yeah. So that's a banger song, dude.
Yeah, that's the dude, Mark Mothersbaugh. And have you ever seen any of his stuff, like the like YouTube videos about him or like his synths or any of that stuff?
No.
Yeah, it's weird because music people, I guess, know about him and know a lot about him, but I just know a little bit about him, but he's one of these genius guys that does these soundtracks and stuff, and he's perfect for Wes Anderson movies.
Yeah.
But that sequence when they go to the island and, they're all in wetsuits, right? They have spear guns. They're all armed. And like, what does Klaus say? Willem Dafoe is awesome in this movie.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah, with the German accent. He's such a ridiculous dude.
See, there you go. You left me out again. You forgot about me.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you're in the B squad, but you're the leader of the B squad. Right. And he's like, yeah, this hotel used to have the best rum cannonball in the South Pacific or whatever. When I first saw the movie, I thought rum cannonball sounded so cool. So I would always look for a rum cannonball. And I guess it was made up for the movie. It's not a drink that exists.
Right.
Yeah, and they go
Somebody asked.
around.
Sorry. Go on. Go on.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say somebody asked if you consider Wes Anderson's films comedies, and yeah, for sure, definitely do. Even though they don't really fall into any one category, they're sort of their own thing. They're Wes Anderson films. They all have that same sort of vibe to them, but I definitely consider them comedy. And for
Yeah,
one person, just real quickly asked if Moonrise Kingdom's good. It's my favorite, so yeah, I think so.
yeah. That's a pretty astute question because I guess classically they would be considered comedies first of all because happy endings, right?
Yeah,
Um, they don't end literally in weddings, but we can tell that those things are on the horizon because people fall in love. They go through a series of events where it could turn really, really bad, like in Life Aquatic. Like the dude's been kidnapped by basically a terrorist group.
yeah, Filipino pirates. Even
Right,
that's just so ridiculous, you know. Yeah.
right, and like Bill Murray goes all out.
Hmm.
Right, I mean he takes out the whole gang.
Yeah.
He saves everybody, even though he's got this support squad with him. He takes them all out. He's a true captain. And it shows you that in the film, like when he asks them to vote, who wants to go with me, and Willem Dafoe like chooses the other group, and he's like, no, I was saying if you want to stay, then stay there. You don't
Right.
cross the line. He's like, no, okay, that's okay. But when it really counts, like he comes through.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
he redeems himself for sure.
right, but he's also he's a rake, he's a raconteur, he's I guess you could say he's a womanizer, I guess, but that's
Alludes to that.
endearing. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
endearing though in the film. And the way that he gets jealous over the reporter is, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Um,
Gamafu says he should do a horror. That would be really interesting. I would love to see a Wes Anderson horror film. I wonder how he would do that, man. That would be interesting to see.
I think you would take one of his films that he was already going to make and just not have the happy ending and have it go all the way.
Yeah, I mean that would be a different kind of horror for sure. That'd be a more realistic horror if he had like something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like Rushmore, if Max didn't turn out to be endearing and went
It'd be
all
more
the
just
way,
depressing. It'd just be just be depressing and not
right? It would
not
turn
have
into
the
it would turn into a stalker movie where he's like, if nobody, if I can't have you, nobody will.
yeah, it'd be like Maniac with Elijah Wood, that remake of the film. Only instead of being like a serial killer, he's just like a creep. Just a straight creep.
Is Maniac the one with what's the fat guy's name?
Yeah, I'm trying to Joe, whatever. He's a beloved actor in horror, but like he looks like just like a fat, greasy dirtball. But like everybody loves the guy. I forget. Let me look it up real quick because I forget his name.
Is it the dude from Superbad?
No. Oh, I thought you were
Uh,
talking about the original Maniac. Are you talking about the Elijah Wood or the original? Because the
I don't
original
know.
one, yeah,
There was
Jonah Hill was in the TV show Maniac.
okay.
Super bad. Was in a TV show, but no, there's a remake of the original film. Let me just to make my my brain stop hurting. I gotta look up the dude.
The TV series Jay covered, it was like it's dystopian.
Yeah.
It's like
That's
mind
with what's her
control.
name? That's with Jonah Hill and what's her name? Emma Emma
Emma
Stone.
Stone. Yeah,
Yeah,
Emma Stone.
that was good. I watched it. That was good. But no, the one I'm talking about is a horror slasher film with Elijah Wood, which I only watched like the first 10 minutes of because it's just gross. About like a maniac, like a serial killer that's like really creepy.
What
The
about
original,
Maniac? What about Maniac Cop?
I
Do you
love
know?
that one, and
Yeah.
that actually has a tie-in because I think the director of Maniac Cop did the original Maniac as well. That's why it's called Maniac Cop because it's almost like sort of a sequel. Which again, Joe Spinelli, that's the name of the guy I was trying to think of. Joe Spinelli. He's like a total like weird looking dude. Like to
You see
look
the
at
dude
him,
with the face?
yeah. I could pull up. He's that dude
He's
with
like
the
a
face.
big guy.
Yeah, he's got two arms and two legs. He's got a face for sure. He's that guy. Yeah, no, he's a bigger dude, and he's got like a weird ass mustache, and like just to look at him, he looks like a plumber or something. And you're like, this guy, who is this guy? But apparently, he's like a really beloved actor. Like he's an actor's actor. They're like that guy. There's so many stories about him and stuff. Like, But
Look,
yeah,
if you're trying to think of who somebody is and you go like this, you
yeah,
should immediately know who that guy is, right?
he's that guy.
No, there's a dude, Maniac Cop. He is the Maniac Cop, and he's got that face.
Yes, Maniac Cop is great. Yeah, he's got a messed up face, and yeah, for sure, he's all cut up. They're like he's a zombie. Like that's the whole idea of that film is like that cop died 20 years ago, and turns out he didn't. He's just they just thought he did, and the mortician dude was like, we all loved that cop, and then it came out that he was like corrupt and bad, but we all love him, so just get out of here. We'll tell everybody you're dead.
It turns out he was on the take, and then we decided to hate him, even though
Right,
everybody else is also.
right. No,
Because it's
Maniac Cops. That's a great film, actually. I know we're totally off topic now, but that's a great
no,
film.
who
And
gives a shit? We can talk about whatever we want.
yeah, Bruce Campbell's in it. It's so good, man. And then the second one, Maniac Cop 2, Bruce Campbell's in it, but only for like 5 seconds because he wanted more money. And they were like, no, we're not going to give you more money. He's like, all right, then kill me, but kill me real good and real quick. And so they like in the first 5 minutes, he just gets like stabbed in the throat. it's
That's like Terrence Howard with Iron Man. Like he was a prominent person in Iron Man, and then he was like, I want as much money as the guy playing Iron Man, and they were like, no, we're gonna get Don Cheadle. Bye.
Yep.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Man.
But whatever.
Yeah.
Remember that happened with Crispin Glover, Back to the Future 2?
Yep.
And they were like, well, we're still going to use your likeness in the film.
I told you I met Crispin Glover, right?
Dude, what?
Yeah.
Where?
Toronto. I was 11 years old in Toronto at the Fan Expo. It's a comic convention.
Whoa.
Comic, horror, sci-fi, anime. It was like a big convention with all
and
these.
Crispin Glover was there?
Crispin Glover, Clive Barker, George A. Romero. Who else? Steve Niles, Malcolm McDowell. I met Malcolm McDowell. I met
Spock. Was that when you met Spock?
No, I was dressed as Spock. I was dressed as Spock, and I met Crispin Glover dressed as Spock. Yeah, and George Romero. I shared that picture with me and George Romero where I was dressed as Spock. But yeah, no, Crispin Glover was cool, dude. He's a cool guy. Somebody said that horror movie Society. Yeah, the Brian Usna film. That movie's freaking warped, dude. I love that movie. Society's great. It's a creep. Have you ever seen that one?
Yes, and Jay's covered it a couple of times too. What was I going to say? Maniac Cop is being remade by Nicholas Winding Refn.
Oh, really?
Dude who made Drive and dude. Have you seen Too Old to Die Young? His series on Amazon.
No.
I mean, you dig it the most, baby. I mean it's something. It's wild. It's got what's his name from Whiplash, and he plays a cop who's like he's a contract killer on his off hours, and it's
nice. You gotta make a living somehow, man.
Yeah, I mean they did it. He did it because he was like, all right, look, he went to the studio and he was like, I want to make a 12-hour movie, and they were like, negative, but everybody's watching these series, so you can just do that. And he was like, all right. It's like
he's like, if Tarkovsky can make an 8-hour film, I'm gonna make a 12-hour film.
It's wild. It's like David Lynch to the max, plus like cartels, and it's like neon soaked. It's like it's wild. It's all out of sequence.
What's it called?
It's called Too Old to Die Young.
Okay. All right.
All the episodes are like titled after the arcana in the tarot. It's got the scene where you think you're in like a weird, outback evangelical church, but it's like an OTO ceremony.
Yeah.
Dude, it is wild. The cartels in it. Anyway, whatever. He's a contract killer, and it's dark. It's very dark.
Yeah.
But so he's remaking Maniac Cop.
Nice. I really like those films, the Maniac Cops, and Maniac itself is a pretty messed up film. I've seen it on Joe Bob Briggs. You ever see the Last Drive-In with Joe Bob?
Negative.
If you're into those like horror movie host type shows, I love those things. You got a host that shows like the old cheesy B horror movies and stuff. There's a guy Joe Bob who does them on Shudder, and they're really good. And that's where I see a lot of these like old like B horror films, and I watched that. And
I seen the first Drive-In with Jim Bob. That's so lame. I'm so sorry. That was terrible.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
You said the last drive-in with Joe
Yeah,
Bob Briggs. Okay.
yeah, yeah. Is that a thing? The first driving with Jim Bob, or is that just a joke?
It was a terrible joke. It was a play
Nice.
on words. I've seen the stuff with Elvira.
Yeah, it's the same type of deal. Yeah, the Elvira type thing. We have one in my town in Buffalo called Offbeat Cinema. That's what introduced me to that whole thing. They film it right downtown in the basement of Channel 4 Studios, and it's three beatniks that do it. And it's like beatnik style. It's in black and white and stuff. And it's like the worst beatnik impression you've ever seen. It's like guys like, yeah, that's cool, cat. Stuff like the worst beatnik shit ever. But it's cool because it's from Buffalo, so I like it.
Buffalo seems pretty cool, dude.
Dude, we were hot stuff in the 30s. I'll tell you what. In the 30s, we were a bustling town. Nowadays it's kind of dried up. But yeah, no, Buffalo's sweet, and especially nowadays, film is getting the film scene is getting big here. They filmed Ninja Turtles here. They filmed Nightmare Alley here. They filmed a bunch of stuff here.
Buffalo 66 with Vincent Gallo.
Yeah, recently they changed the laws and stuff to make it like a better place to film. Like they changed the taxes stuff, so more people have been filming stuff here now. But yeah,
they did that in VA, and they filmed Lincoln here, and what was it? Daniel Day-Lewis was all about town. They made a bunch of stuff here. I was telling Jethro, shouts out to Jethro. He was telling me about this Michael Biehn interview. Remember the dude in Terminator? He played Kyle Reese in Terminator, and he was what's his face in Tombstone. Anyway, he did this interview where he was talking about Tombstone, and that guy was in a movie they filmed here, this terrible movie called Cherry Falls with Brittany Murphy. And all of my classmates were extras, and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. It's lame. And I so should have done it, dude, because they get like prominent time in the movie, and it's so bad. It was a Scream ripoff.
Oh, nice.
Called Cherry Falls.
Yeah, dude, I thought about doing the extra thing now because of the filmmaking in Buffalo for sure. Yeah, Tombstone's an awesome movie. Tombstone's so good. You mentioned Tombstone. I love that movie.
Did I tell you they filmed an episode of Homeland in my parents' house?
In your parents' house? No.
Yeah. They filmed an entire series. It was not this most recent one, but the one before that of Homeland in VA, and they were the location scouts or whatever were walking by, and they dropped a leaflet. They needed a place to film a scene in a library.
Yeah.
And so my parents have this amazing library.
Right.
But
we have books.
The irony is that they filmed the scene in the house, but they didn't use the library. They turned the dining room into a library.
Oh, wow.
But they put my parents up at there's a 4-star or 5-star hotel. They put them up for a week there. They paid them. They changed everything downstairs, but then they put it right back.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard horror stories about film crews and houses, man, they destroy your house,
No, this was pretty cool. And Saul, the main dude, his green room was my parents' bedroom upstairs. He filmed a scene, then he was gone. But also one of the camera operators was one of my classmates from school, which was like, what?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so what were we talking about?
Well, we were talking about Steve Zissou, but we did kind of run through that one. What are some honorable mentions we could do for Wes Anderson's filmography here? Somebody mentioned Isle of Dogs. That was cool. I did like that. Any stop motion? That was a stop motion one, right? Isle of Dogs. That was
I don't know. But I didn't watch it because of the title. I didn't want to see it because of whatever. And I watched 5 minutes of the most recent one. Grand Budapest Hotel is admirable.
Yeah, like I said before, I think it's a good film, but it just didn't do it for me,
Right. I think that the Zissou is so good because the ship is so good. He obviously it's funny.
And that was a full size set too. That what do they call it? That vertical slice. That was 150 feet set. Yeah.
Right. They you can see the seeds of his movies and his other movies because he's got the Jacques Cousteau book and Rushmore. So then they filmed that. What is it with Royal Tenenbaums? The hotels in Rushmore. So then they do it there.
Yep.
Anyway, whatever. But I think that part of that is like he's obviously creating this, not an alternate reality, but he's making a stylized reality.
Yeah.
In a way, I'm not saying it's poetry. It's not like visual poetry, but it is poetic in the sense that, you know, he's detailed. The writing is tight. There's not
I
a
mean,
lot.
it definitely feels like he's pulling characters out of his own life, or like creating characters out of people he knows or met, or things like that. You know, they feel very much like natural, real sort of people.
Yeah, and the characters also are kind of this distilled version of like the best of who that character would be in life. So like you get what's his name? The dude in Royal Tenenbaums who, you know, yeah, I got stabbed in a bar in Calcutta. Who stabbed you? Well, he did. Right. All right. Like that is I don't know how to explain it, but that is like the version of those characters. Ben Stiller's character in Royal Tenenbaums, like, you know, he's a genius with finance. He sues his own family, then he starts a hedge fund and he lives in the house, but like his wife is gone. And he has this intense anxiety about his kids. He's training them for disasters. And meanwhile, his siblings are like totally the opposite of him, right? Margot is like a creative genius who lives in a bathtub, like with the TV just barely dangling above it.
Yeah, the names are super pretentious. They're like Margot and what's the other what's the other brother's name? I know there's Richie, Margot, and then what's the other one? Chaz.
Yes.
Chaz.
Mama. Hey, mama. Mama. Hey, man. Yeah, the guy recognizes them at the cemetery.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, okay, so he's Bjorn Borg, right? He is Bjorn Borg. And he like represents everything that was, I guess, cool about that dude in the 70s and like updates it, but then makes him this depressive character because he's got this half sister. She's adopted. Yeah, Margot's adopted and he's in love with her, but he can't say. And then she's having the affair with Eli Cash.
Right.
Hey, I know you, you son of a bitch. My favorite part of Royal Tenenbaums is the painting that's behind Eli Cash, like in his apartment. It's the dudes like on the like motorbikes, like with the masks on.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I'm talking about?
I'd have to see it.
Yeah, that part's cool. And Zissou. So I think that, I don't know, what I put in the title was that it represents like it's angst to me.
For sure, yeah, and we didn't really even mention that yet. I don't think the whole angsty element to his films, which is present in most of them, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about that word, it's like it applies to the 90s, really. It's like a 90s thing, right?
Nirvana and grunge and all that stuff. Yeah.
Teen angst in the 90s. And that's not what his stuff is, but you can see that obviously informed his art, and that we have adults who are like still living that and are trying to come to terms with, I don't know, what love and life means. But one thing, I think, who was it? It was maybe Kristen. Shouts out to Slowboy Whiteboard. I think she brought up in the chat something about how the way that Kristen, what was it you said earlier? The way that the characters, I think the visual symbol in the films of the way that the characters act is the fact that, number one, we've got, again, this like class dichotomy, right? You've got people who are extremely rich, but they live, you know, empty lives, right? They always have a partner or a sibling or something who has everything and they don't. Draculius, right? Draculius finances the mission. That part's pretty cool. They go after the safe. The safe is empty. What's his name? Kingsley Zissou, right? Steezy. Kingsley Zissou has the inheritance, but he's got no purpose in his life. He's trying to find out, you know, where he comes from, who his dad is.
Yeah.
Margot is blessed with creativity and, you know, writing ability, but like she won't write plays because she's miserable.
Yeah.
Ben Stiller has all the money and he's got the hedge fund, but like he's alienated from his family and from his dad.
I do love Ben Stiller in most things. I think he's great. He's a sort of underrated actor. You ever see the movie where he plays a heroin addict?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. What
It's Permanent Midnight. I've got the book.
is that what that's called? Permanent Midnight? Yeah,
Yeah,
dude, I only saw that once. I remember being like, "Damn, I did not expect this from Ben Stiller." So dark, dude.
yeah, I got it right.
Yeah, that's the one, Permanent Midnight. Yeah, if I recall correctly, that's kind of a comedy too, though, isn't it? Isn't there comedic elements in that one?
Oh yeah,
But
it's
it's
a
like there's this dark where he's at like the hospital. Is his wife or his girlfriend pregnant or giving birth? I forgot. I just remember he gets like kicked out of the hospital. I'm like, man, this is so dark, dude. I did not expect this.
yeah.
I think I
So
got it at like a thrift store on VHS, and I had no idea what it was, and just like, yeah,
the movie version is pretty good and pretty true to the novel.
yeah,
It's not. I guess it's not really a novel. It's more of like it's a memoir, but it's based on Jerry Stahl, who created Alf. He wrote Alf, and he was a kind of a failed Hollywood writer, and he's got he's got a hardcore addiction, and he's trying to hide it, and he's a great writer though, and he writes Alf, and he's working for these networks, and they can obviously see that he's a troubled genius, but he writes this brilliant thing, and then yeah, his I think wife gives birth, scene, but it's a dark comedy in the sense that again, like the dude's trying to find meaning in his life and escape his slavery. And write something that's pure and that's his and isn't like enslaved to this corporate thing.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Jerry Stahl's written a bunch of stuff. He's co-written a bunch of screenplays. He still writes. And yeah, the question about the comedy also, I think that yes, they're comedies, but the fact that these are mostly 2000s movies. I mean, even though Rushmore is 98, it's kind of a 2000s movie.
Hmm.
And it's weird that they exist in this post Big Nine world where it's like the comedy has this sadness to it, right?
Yeah,
And it's also
tainted for sure.
yeah, and it's got this like alternate universe where people are trying to I don't know, escape or find meaning, and there's something else, and they find this kind of like temporary solace in the quirkiness of the movies.
And there is a sort of constant theme throughout his films of like world weariness too, as well. Sort of,
Right.
yeah, I definitely picked that up in a lot of his films.
All right, so should we check some super chats here? How long have we
Let's
been
do
going?
it. Yeah, please, everybody, support your boy. Come on now.
Yeah, come on, y'all.
now, support your boy.
Throw us a bone here because we're gonna split it like always. And let's check it out. So, okay, here we go. Shouts out to our homeboy Maddie from Digital Minefield, Real Cooter Brown, who sent 6 bones and said for the sticky note and Red Bull Fund. Thank you so much, good sir. Appreciate you. Shouts out to John, also again, who sponsored this stream a while ago, and I'm glad we finally got to it.
Yeah, John's a homie. He's a good dude.
Let's see. Let me check the YouTubes. Why don't you give yourself a shout out? Plug your channel.
Everybody, go subscribe to Exposed and Powerful Lies. It's the best channel ever. I'm the best channel guy ever, except for our homie Bazed Analyzer, who's better. But we do YouTube stuff. I talk, I do stuff. So go check it out. It's awesome. It's the best thing you'll ever watch, and other than Bazed Analyzer. So yeah, go do it.
For sure. Come on, y'all.
It's the humblest person you've ever met in your life. I promise. The most humble.
The most humble, the last man, the most humble. That's what he says in the Mosquito Coast. Y'all,
the handsomest.
Oh yeah, okay.
Smartest.
Jerry here is the ladies' man. He's the handsome guy.
I don't feel like it lately. I'll tell you what.
I'm the book guy. I'm the book guy talking about books. And please, if you haven't seen it or you didn't get the notification or whatever, check out my Mosquito Coast analysis that I did yesterday. It's not really a well-known or popular work, but I think it's pretty relevant, especially to the lifestyle that a lot of people in our circles lead. So, please check it out. Please check out Jerry's channel. He's done a bunch of like high IQ, amazing interviews recently. Father Turbo, JD.
That was fun. Yeah, that was fun. I just invited Father Peter Here's on So I'm hoping to hear back from him. I'm not announcing anything. I haven't heard back, but I did just invite him today just because people were asking me, hey, you're going to have Peter Hears on next? I'm like, I want to. If he'll say yes, I totally will. And also, we did, I saw John Pro was in the audience earlier today. We did get the audience help to commission an icon of Father Seraphim Rose by John Pro. So I'm looking forward to that as well. So shouts out to John Pro.
Yeah, shouts out to John Pro for sure. Shouts out to IPAC Gaines, IPAK Gaines, who does the thumbnail work for me, for JD, for Sam Tripoli. Please check him out on Instagram.
Oh, nice. He does stuff for Sam Tripoli as well. I didn't know.
Yes, sir. We got another donation here. Let's see. Shouts out to Amy. Amy drops $3 on PayPal. Thank you so much, Amy. Appreciate it. All right, so that's that's all the super chats we got.
That's all good,
That's all good.
I feel bad because I didn't watch these films like before. I really should have. I would have had a lot more to say on them, but I was the one that pushed you to do it today. I'm like, no, let's just do it today. I'm sure it'll be fine. I've seen these a billion times, but I do kind of feel bad because I didn't have as much to say about it as I would normally. But I mean, I think we covered the main points. Covered the themes, covered the plot.
Yeah, dude. Don't feel bad. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so grateful that you joined me for this because, again,
always fun.
Shouts out to John. I really had trouble with this topic because I love the films, but for some reason, like it was just hard to dive into an angle and explicate these movies. We could have done all the Wes Anderson movies, but the quantity I don't think does justice to like the content. I mean, for instance, what's the movie they filmed in India? The
Darjeeling, yeah, Limited.
Right. So that movie, for example, came after Zissou, and of course I saw it in the cinema. But what happened with that movie is that like it's Owen Wilson and what's his face who kissed Halle Berry at the Oscars, which really, I guess, demolished that dude's career.
Really?
Yeah, remember he won the Oscar for the pianist.
I never heard about him kissing her. Did he do it against her will or so just like randomly kissed her? Scott Rudin? Roman Coppola?
No, the main dude in the Darjeeling Limited.
Adrian Brody.
Yes, Adrian Brody.
Really? Oh, that screwed up his career?
Yeah, so he was presented with the award by Halle Berry because the former, last year's Best Actress or whatever. Presents it to this year's Best Actor, and she presented it, and he got the award, and he like full on, snoggery, made out with her, and I remember at the time watching it and going like, okay, yeah, this is kind of wild how they're doing this. Who knows, staged or whatever, but nevertheless, it was kind of a.
Was he in Sin City, Adrian Brody?
No,
he was in a movie like Sin City that was called that's what it was. It was a movie that was very much, it almost felt like a Sin City ripoff. Like it was like in the same style, it was black and white and but it was more cowboy themed. I forget what it was called. I have to look it up, but yeah. So I always think that was a Clive, what's his name? Clive Wilson? Who's the guy in
Clive Owen?
Clive Owen, that's it, yeah.
Who I think is awesome. That dude.
Oh, Clive Owen's great, yeah.
Yeah, he's great. Shouts out to look at this. Shouts out to the real John Connor. All the stars are here. Sends $20. The real John Connor. Thank you, homeboy. Appreciate you.
You're the man, John. Thank you so much, bro.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Adrian Brody was in not the Black Dahlia. He was in the other movie about the Black Dahlia.
He's a pretty good actor.
Yeah, he is pretty good. But Jack Nicholson or somebody said, well, it wouldn't be Jack Nicholson, said that the Oscar is a death sentence for your career. And I guess a lot of times it is, but that whole thing's political anyway. So,
the Oscars are so gay, dude. And totally says I never watched the Oscars. Yeah, me neither. I don't know how people do. So it's not even fun to watch it. Ironically, it's just garbage.
I watched them for years because number one, I'm a huge nerd. And two, for instance, I watched it all night when Daniel Day-Lewis was in it for Gangs of New York because I was at drama school and he went to our school and I was like, right. If he wins, this is going to be fucking, it's going to be awesome. Not like it matters or whatever. Mm-hmm. But back when I was a teenager, I thought it mattered and I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
but like Sharon Stone, you know, trying to win the Oscar for whatever. And do you know the story with that?
Mm-mm.
She she bought like a Rolex for every single member of the Academy,
Oh my
and
God.
it took out all these ads and stuff. And it's like, why? What are you doing? When in reality, I learned that most people in the Academy itself don't watch the movies. They don't like movies. They don't go to the movies.
Right.
Right? Why are
I
you
can
going to
see
sit there
that.
and watch the movie when you work on the movie all day? It's lame.
Yeah,
So,
I can see that. Yeah.
but you know, Adrian Brody, he still works and stuff. But anyway, when I saw that movie, the Darjeeling movie, um, all I kept thinking the whole time was that Owen Wilson looks like he's in pain in the movie. You know, he's wearing the bandages and stuff.
Yeah.
And uh, he was supposed to be in Tropic Thunder.
Which is such a
And
good film, dude. I love
it's
Tropic
like,
Thunder.
oh man, it's like the best movie ever, dude. It's so
Yeah.
fucking good.
Yeah.
And he was supposed to be in that, but he dropped out because you remember he had that suicide attempt. Like apparently Owen
Yeah.
Wilson tried to off himself.
Oh, see,
And
I never heard about that. I never heard
yeah,
about that. Owen Wilson tried to do
he-
that?
yeah, it was really weird.
Wow.
It was like really weird. And I don't know. I learned that it had something to do with he was staying with that dude, Steve Coogan, the English actor who plays the director in Tropic Thunder.
Yes.
I want the key grip to go up and punch him in the face. Remember that scene?
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
So
Steve Coogan, he always reminds me of Tim Burton. He's like Tim Burton if Tim Burton was an actor. That's who he looks like to me.
did Steve Coogan, have you seen 24-Hour Party People?
No.
Dude, that movie rocks so hard. It's so good. It's about the dude who founded the like Hacienda Rave Club in Manchester and produced
Nice.
Joy Division and stuff. It's
The
really good.
the rave movie that I know is Human Traffic. Is a film called Human Traffic. It's like the British version of it. Well, Train Spotting's a British film, but it's like the Train Spotting, but instead of heroin, it's ecstasy. That's the way I describe it.
Have you seen let's see, rave movies? Have you seen the movie Go?
Let me look it up because that sounds really. I think I have. Yeah.
It's got Katie Holmes and
Oh
it's
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
2000.
Yep.
That which is kind of like that movie was clearly like a Pulp Fiction type of ripoff. You know, it's non-linear.
Right.
And there's a great scene in that where the dude like takes ease and like the cat is
pops in the mollies.
Right.
Like all the kids are doing these days.
Right. He's pumping the he's remember when everyone said that like 12 years ago?
Popping
It was in
mollies.
it was in all the rap songs and shit.
Yep.
I guess now it's, you know, cutting your whatever. All right, homeboy. Well, I guess that's about all we got.
Nice.
Anything else you want to bring up?
We came, we saw the Wes Anderson films, we conquered. No, man, that was fun. I like I said again, I'm sorry, I'm not on my A game today, but I've been all messed up lately, dude. These last 3 weeks have just been absolute garbage. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me. I'm sorry that, like I said, I just been sort of dragging ass today. Somebody just mentioned SLC Punk. That's another great older film. I remember really loving that one, hardcore back in the day. And then the last time I watched it, I was like, this movie sucks, dude. This movie fucking sucks. But I used to love it when I was a kid. And what does that remind me of? An actual punk film that I think is great is Repo Man, or not Repo Man, Repo Man with Emilio Estevez. That is so good. And then what's another one? The Anarchist Cookbook was another film I saw. I remember a real independent punk movie. What are some other good punk films, man? There's not a lot that I know.
Have you seen The Decline of Western Civilization, the documentary?
No, I don't think so.
Dude, it is the punk documentary. It's got the Germs,
nice.
Fear, Black Flag before Henry Rollins. It's about the LA punk scene. It's by that Hollywood. Was it Penelope Spheres? Penelope something. Yeah, that's a good one. The movie Groove, 2000, like underrated movie about rave. It's got John Digweed and Sasha and Digweed are in the movie. It's about San Francisco warehouse raves.
I know the director of Repo Man, Alex Cox. He did a film with Ed Harris called it was what the hell is it called? Hang on, let me look this up real quick. I really want to see Alex Cox, Ed Harris.
Repo Man rules, dude.
Repo
Great.
Man's like the best, dude. It's one of my favorite films with Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah.
Freaking so good, dude. It's such a great film. This movie Walker. I really want to see this movie. They got a Criterion Collection DVD I want to get. But I love Ed
Walk.
Harris. Like Walker. It's something like
Oh, Ed
communist
Harris
propaganda
rules, dude.
bullshit. But yeah, Ed Harris is one of my all-time favorite filmmaker, or not filmmakers, actors. Which honestly I love him so much because of the film Night Riders by George A. Romero, which in my opinion, Night Riders is the best George Romero film, and it's not a horror. It's like a fantasy Renaissance fair type film. But like for some reason, it just clicks with me on a certain level. It's got Tom Savini as one of the main actors in it, which is amazing because he's an FX guy. But it's all about like this Renaissance fair, but instead of horses, they're on motorcycles.
They've got like big hair or pomp. They got something like,
dude, it's a great film. I highly recommend everybody check it out. It's called Night Riders, but spelled Knight, so like night, and it's all about Ed Harris is the king of the Renaissance fair or whatever, and it's got all the usual George Romero actors in it, but it's like I said, it's not a horror at all, and it details the story of Ed Harris as the head of this band of people putting on this show. They go town to town, but he's just like, he's got this thing. He's got this little world that he's created, and he's trying to keep it alive and not sell out, and it's like that whole idea of like, he's fighting his inner struggles, trying to like maintain this like fantasy that he's built, but it's more than, I don't know. I really connected to it on a certain level because to me, it was the same thing as what I was doing when I was traveling. And so like, I totally get like what he's saying there. And then what George A. Romero is saying is that he's trying to be himself in Hollywood without selling out, which is really what George Romero did. That's why he had to go back to making low budget films at the end of his career, because he wouldn't sell out to Hollywood. Basically, he wouldn't do the shit they wanted him to do, and so he never really got big in Hollywood, never got big budgets, anything like that. But
isn't that movie doesn't it take kind of a cue from Mad Max?
A little bit, kind of, yeah. I mean, it's totally set, modern day. Well, not modern. It was in the 70s, but like takes place in modern times or whatever. But like, there's definitely Mad Max vibes to it, but it's not like apocalyptic or anything. It's in the real world, but it's this like bubble of like these people that are running this Renaissance fair, but that's their life. Like they live in it, But it's like Renaissance fair with motorcycles. It's so weird, dude.
Okay, I always thought it was another post-apocalyptic.
It does look like that on the cover. You're like, this looks like some Mad Max shit. It's got like a guy on a motorcycle, but in like a suit of armor and stuff. But no, it's like it's a really good movie, and like nobody knows about it. Like nobody, there's a lot of those George Romero films that nobody knows about. He did a film for like the Methodist Church or some shit like that like recently was rediscovered. They paid him to like make some like weird movie. I want to see that. I haven't seen that, but he did one called Monkey Shines, all about this killer monkey.
Yeah,
the monkey with the symbols. Yeah,
yeah.
he did that. He did Season of the Witch or Night of the Witch or something, and then he did one called Martin, which is really great. I don't know if you've seen that, Martin. It's that's a cool one. That was one of his first, and very super low budget, about this kid who is a vampire, who thinks he's a vampire, and his uncle is like his uncle or grandpa or whatever is like the Van Helsing character or whatever, who's convinced that this kid's a vampire and like he has to stop him. And the whole film is about like, is he actually a vampire, or is like his like grandpa like just fucked his mind up so bad that he thinks he is, because he is actually like attacking women and like, but he's draining their blood with like a syringe and like drinking it. And so you're like, is this dude a vampire? Is he just insane? And yeah, that's a good one, man. That's a cool idea there.
It's wild how the vampire movies kind of come and go in waves.
Yeah,
and they almost act as like buffers or stopgaps between like big movements in Hollywood, like with the Twilight movies and all that shit.
Yeah, it's probably garbage. Which, by the way, all those films I just mentioned, except for Night Riders, you can watch for free on YouTube, or at least you used to be able to like a year ago. I saw Monkey Shine, Season of the Witch, and Martin are all on YouTube.
It's also wild that George Romero makes these movies for years, and George Miller makes one movie like on $20,000, and it absolutely explodes
in New Zealand.
In New Zealand to do whatever
Australia
for whatever he and they edit it like in his shack or whatever.
Yeah, and George Romero's in Pittsburgh. He's like literally in the heart of America.
Right. And it's like the biggest movie ever. And for some reason, people take to it, and it finances the rest of his career. Right.
Yeah, George Romero would have had a lot easier time had he not gotten screwed with the copyright on Night of the Living Dead, because that one blew up. Night of the Living Dead blew up, but he made no money on it because of the whole thing where they forgot to put the copyright in. It got like cut off on the side of the
Man.
screen. So as soon as it hit the theaters, it went public domain, and so it blew up. But he got no money for it.
Oh, dude, that sucks.
Yeah, the rest of his life he was basically miserable about it. He's like, man, I would have been a millionaire. The fuck?
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Entourage? The show?
I seen like I never watched it, but yeah, I saw like little bits, but not much.
It kind of like addresses that, how you make it big. These people make it big because they make an ultra low budget movie totally outside of Hollywood, and for some reason sometimes it clicks, and then that allows them an entryway into Hollywood, and then and then they get co-opted by the big people or whatever.
Yep.
But it kind of addresses that. And I have a friend, of course, who worked in like he started off at MTV, and then he eventually he started he was a production assistant on some TV shows or whatever.
Right.
And then he got his SAG card because he was the guy that says last week on Medium. Right.
Really?
And but he was a writer, and he wanted to write his own thing.
I wonder how much you get paid for that. Just that job. Last week.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, once you get your SAG card, it takes care of your insurance and you make enough to get by and stuff. But he told me that, like, if you go to Hollywood, you basically have to have tons of money or no money at all, right? And you do the thing where you live with people for years, and you might never make it or whatever. But he wrote a movie, and he went to all the studios. Finally, he went to, I think it was AMC, and they bought it, and they were going to make it. It got all, I mean, he got paid for making the movie, right? And then finally, it turns out another famous guy basically wrote the same story and the same movie at the same time.
That sucks.
And bought him out, and so they never made it. And it's like, okay, it's cool that he sold the movie, but it must be it's so tough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that sucks. That's gotta really suck.
Yeah, especially like Romero is making movies constantly, and it's like, yeah, but I guess the one thing they really do crave is the recognition.
Yeah.
And like, look at Ed Wood, right? I mean, at least his movie is so bad that it's good.
Yeah.
Right.
They're all terrible, man. They're so bad. I had the box set, the Ed Wood box set with all 5 of them or whatever. It's like, man,
right.
Those are truly garbage films.
I mean, like Kubrick could have ended up like that, I guess, until he got contacted by, NASA or whatever.
Kubrick's one of those guys, though, that he's just so good that you could literally, like, if he had no money and was like making films in his garage, like, they would be like, you couldn't ignore them. They're so good. You know what I mean?
Right.
It'd be like that film Primer. You guys ever see that movie that guy made for like $7,000? Like, it was like in his house with his wife and his like 4 buddies. Made it for $7,000 in his own house, and it like blew up because it was just so good. It's like so well written, such an interesting plot. It's like, obviously it doesn't have the finesse of the Kubrick eye and the cinematography and stuff, but I mean, Kubrick was just so talented and such a skilled filmmaker in general with his photographer experience and stuff I'm sorry, even if he had no money and no back, I feel like he still would have gotten recognition.
Did you ever hear that what's his wife's name? Is it Christiane? Is that his wife?
Yeah, something like that.
His wife's uncle was a filmmaker for a certain country in the middle of the 20th century, and made one of those films, yes, about a certain group of people. Did you know that?
I did not, but I'm not surprised.
I did not know that.
Not surprised. I know that what's his name? Oh man, why am I Metropolis? Fritz Lang. Lang, apparently, he told that story his whole life, how he fled Germany or whatever, and then it came out like, no. Yeah, he wasn't necessarily opposed to that.
Yeah, why are you?
His wife like stayed behind and like.
Yeah, why are you in all these these pics from the Riviera with Goebbels. That's
Right.
weird.
Yeah, exactly. He told this whole story of like how he's like had to like sneak out of Germany, and it's like, wasn't your wife like very vocal like proponent of those guys, and like she
Right.
actually stayed back in Germany and like was like doing yeah. But
Like
I do love the Fritz Lang films. He is a great filmmaker.
or F.W. Murnau,
Yeah, yeah,
which the most about. But that movie,
yeah. He's a gay lame-o for sure. Yeah,
Shadow of the Vampire, where Malcatraz plays him, man, monkey,
yeah.
right? But
Malkovich. Yeah,
yeah, but it's weird because that movie turns into somehow turns into a Third Reich-esque picture with just the language. The people who like Carrie Elwes flies in, he's wearing the black leather, and it turns into this weird version of it. I know Nick Cage is like going to do a vampire flick coming
yeah.
up.
I saw that he's trying to. It seems like they're definitely hitting on the Shadow of the or what was that? What was that Nick Cage or the original one called? The old one where he plays the freaking over the top. Was that Shadow of the Vamp? What the hell was that?
Well,
called?
he produced Shadow of the Vampire, but that was like 2000. But he was
I'm
in
trying
the
to
one.
trying to think of the one where everybody knows it's like the meme one where he's
it's the meme one.
ridiculous. Yeah, what is
It's
that
not.
called?
It's not Once Bitten. That's Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I'm looking it up now. What the hell is this called?
Speaking
Vampire's
of
Kiss. Vampire's
that's
Kiss.
it.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jim Carrey, that Mosquito Coast movie, like it's Harrison Ford, but for some reason he acts exactly like Jim Carrey in the movie.
Really?
Yeah, because it's kind of over the top, but he does it well. But Jim Carrey, what was I gonna say? What's my Jim Carrey? Oh, Jim Carrey Buffalo Connection. Because
he was just filming a film here within the last 5 years. I know that because everybody was talking about it.
Really?
Yeah. He was here for something recently. I remember everybody was talking about it, but I don't remember what the film was.
Well, I was gonna say how Buffalo played the Giants and the field goal, right? The field goal, and then they made Ace Ventura because it's Ray Finkel. So,
a Buffalo connection to Jim Carrey is one of his favorite bands, at least back in the day, was Cannibal Corpse, which is a Buffalo band. And what do you call it? They were in Ace Ventura. That's why he put them in Ace Ventura, because it's one. Back then, he was saying they were his favorite band. So,
what you up to, Mandinga? Oh, nothing. Just watching the fishies, old man, old Shevitz.
Which Cannibal Corpse, actually, my best friend's dad could have been their drummer. They actually asked him to drum. My best buddy's dad is like a renowned drummer in Buffalo. He really is like the most talented drummer here. And he played in some really popular grindcore bands. I hear one's called Evulsion that's like well known. It's one of those bands that's like super popular here and like in like some random like Norway or something,
right.
the grindcore scene or whatever. But yeah, they asked him to be in their band, but he had some other prior thing he was doing, so he's like, "Nah, I'm good." And then they blew up, and he's like, "Motherfucker, I should have been in Cannibal Corpse." Like, damn it. But yeah.
The only comparison to that I have is that Guar is from Richmond.
Yeah.
And got their start at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. And the singer died a few years ago. He they found him, he'd OD'd in his easy chair or whatever. And there's that band Lamb of God. Have you ever heard of that band Lamb of God?
Oh yeah. I've seen all their T-shirts when I was in high school. Everybody wearing the Lamb of God shirts and shit.
Yeah,
I never heard them, but
they're from Richmond.
Okay.
That dude was like, they locked him up in like, where was it, in Prague or something for like a couple years. I don't know if Trump got him out. But it was during that. Yeah, it was during that. Remember how Trump got,
I love Lamb of God. They're the best, the greatest ever.
Yeah. You remember they were like, are you gonna pardon Julian Assange? And he was like, I don't know, but ASAP Rocky is facing, a lot of trouble right now. He's in Sweden. We're gonna get ASAP Rocky.
Yeah. This one guy did jaywalking. We gotta get him out for sure. That guy, what's his name? What's the guy that ripped everybody off? What's his name? Corporate guy,
the pyramid scheme guy.
Yeah.
That scumbag.
We got to get him off, but not Julian Assange. Anybody but him.
Yeah. What, sir? What do you think of GMAX? I don't know. I just heard this. She's a
lovely person. I wish the best for her. Wish her the best.
I don't know. I went there. All I did was talk to the waiters, and then I left. I don't know.
She gave me a massage, or maybe it was one of her employees. What the
I
hell
was
is that guy's
listening.
name, dude? Fucking Madoff. Bernie Madoff.
There you go.
Bernie Madoff, wonderful gentleman, great guy. Got to get him off.
Which again, I think was a fucking, I don't know if it's a limited hangout or whatever, but the
Yeah, that's
fact that
exactly what
happened
it is.
right
Let's,
after the thing, yeah, it's like this is the villain.
he's
And he
doing what we're all
was.
doing, but we're gonna hit him, of course, because
Right.
he went after some of our guys, and yeah,
Right. Remember when Rage Against the Machine played on Wall Street?
yeah, yeah. We're fighting the power, man. Look, we're getting arrested, hardcore. Yeah.
Bernie Madoff. What was I just thinking of that you were talking? Oh, yeah, dude. Again, the Shane Gillis podcast with Louis C.K., they were talking about, the fuck were they talking about? You were just talking about, oh, when they were talking about when Trump had the best stand-up act, the best shit talk of all time when he was talking about McCain.
Yeah.
Right. And McCain was like, I don't think you should be president. And he was like, listen, everybody, I don't know. I just hear this in a rumor. Everyone says you're a war hero, but they didn't get caught, right? You got caught. You remember when he said that?
Yeah. Oh, he's great at dissing on people. That is one thing for sure. And how about Trump apparently getting arrested next week? That's pretty fucking crazy.
Right. Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be yesterday or whatever.
Yeah, they said he might be arrested Tuesday, and then some people are saying next week. And just the fact that if a president gets mugshotted, like that's gonna be pretty wild. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally ignored all that.
They
For
should
obvious
mugshot all of
reasons.
them. They should arrest all of them.
Oh, dude,
every
yeah.
time.
I mean, more than that we can't really say, but
Yeah.
have any of them been? Well, I know that Ulysses S. Grant, I think he was arrested while he was president for drunk driving. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he was drunk driving his horse or some shit.
Was that even a law back then? I feel like that wasn't even a law back then.
I mean, I think he must have been like really he was totally.
If you get arrested back then for drunk horse riding or driving, like you got to be really fucking drunk, dude.
Yeah, and he was the president.
Firing your gun off of the air.
Dude, he was
at
annihilated.
You could probably be drunk and fire your gun in the air without you'd have to aim it at people and actually fire.
Well, Andrew Jackson did that. I mean, literally.
Yeah,
right?
Well, yeah. He had a habit in doing that, right?
He fought duels while he was president.
Right. Yeah.
That dude shot at him.
You, sir, challenge my honor.
Yeah, that dude shot at him and missed, and he like beat him. He beat him down with his hickory stick or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know what the S stands for in Ulysses S. Grant? Trivia.
Sigma male grind set. I don't know what.
That's a pretty good guess, dude. That's pretty good. No, it stands for nothing. They made it up because it sounded more distinguished.
Presidents should have a middle initial. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I did learn from that Shane and whatever secret podcast, the Shane Gillis podcast with Louis C.K. It's excellent. Anyway.
Digital Minefield says, shout out Andrew Jackson. Yeah, shout out Andrew Jackson. Wonderful guy. Great guy.
Yeah, well, and also they wanted to remember when they were going to replace Andrew Jackson with Tubbs. They were going to make him like Tub Bucks or whatever. And then they never fucking did it. You know why? Because they're racist. Anyway.
Based Andrew Jackson.
They said, I learned that it was like the ultimate irony that they put him on the bill because he hated banks. He hated the big bank. He hated centralization. He hated all that. So it's weirdly ironic that they put him on the 20.
Yeah.
And also, what else did I learn from that? I learned that about Bubba, about Bill Clinton. I didn't know that Bill Clinton's real last name was Jefferson.
Oh, really?
William Jefferson Clinton. It was Jefferson. And Roger, the musician, his little brother, his, I guess, stepbrother, that when he turned 18, he changed it to Clinton so he could be like brothers with Roger Clinton. Okay. Because his dad was real terrible to his mom, and he told him, if you do that again, I'm gonna do something about it. Of course, his real dad might be what's his name, who was the Rockefeller governor of Arkansas.
Yeah, right. Fucking we were just talking off air the other day about the Buffalo connection with presidents, McKinley getting shot here, which is great. So they named them all after him. We got the McKinley Mall over here. So, president gets shot, you get a mall named after you. That's great.
Dude, yeah, it's crazy how many of them have been shot.
Genghis says Ulysses Speed Racer Grant. That's funny.
Right. But the story about Reagan, when it happened to Reagan, and you know, it was Hinckley. By
Yep.
the way, who has a YouTube channel, by the way.
Yeah.
And so it happened to him, and you know, you can watch the footage or whatever. And the Secret Service had the Uzi in his under his coat. And what's his name got shot? Brady got shot. But they, you know, they thought Reagan, like, you know, they thought his rib was broken because the guy jumped on him, and then he got in a limo, and then he was like started spitting up blood. And then they had to take him to George Washington Hospital. And it was like just the limo. And he pulls up and like gets out. They had a gurney. And he was like, I don't want a gurney. I want to walk on my own 2 feet into the hospital. And he's walking in, and you can see these guys who are standing out front, just like smoking cigs. And they're like, oh, shit.
That's the president?
That's the president. And he's like, hello.
Bad time, guys. That's funny. Man,
Yeah,
we've
that
been
was-
all over the place on this stream. Holy shit, we've been hitting so many different things.
For sure. Should we cut it off? Should we cut it? We've
Yeah,
been
let's wrap
rambling
it.
for a while. All right, dude. Let's wrap it
fun.
up. All right.
Rambling's
So
fun.
listen, I want to thank my homeboy here for joining me to talk about Wes Anderson films, Angst, 2000 cinema, set pieces, presidents, podcasts, all sorts of cultural items. And please go to his channel. Well, everybody here, I'm sure, is, you know, already subbed to his channel. But if you're not, please go to his channel at Exposing Powerful Lies live streams and hit that sub button. Please, if you're watching me right here, please subscribe, hit that sub button. If you want to support us, you can see our links in our channel descriptions. You can support us anytime. You can do sponsor streams, whatever. You can drop us a line, Mad Maximalism with 2 X's at gmail.com. Give me suggestions. Do the same for Jerry. See his contact details on his channel. Or hit him up on Instagram, or hit me up on Instagram. And thank you again, sir. Really appreciate you.
Hell yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on. Always fun.
Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to the mods. Thank you to Jethro, to Mixkey, Technoir Graphics, to Slowboy Whiteboard, everybody out there, everybody who donated, especially to John, who sponsored this stream. I'll be doing more sponsored streams this week while I'm on spring break. I've got The Canticle of Leibowitz coming up, Henry Miller, more films, bunch of stuff. All right, y'all. That's about all we've got. So I hope y'all have a good night. Peace. Love y'all.
Peace.
Peace.